Welcome to Soccer Morning. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Here we are on Soccer Morning on backheel.com. Let me just get that music out of the way, and we will begin proceedings here on a Wednesday covering World Soccer over the next, hour and change. Very good guest for you today. The return of Luke Moore from the Football Ramble. He'll join us in just a couple of minutes to go over the situation in the Premier League, England in general. Yesterday we had an FA Cup match, which was notable. Some managerial rumors out there floating around. The Rags are on top of it, guys. If you were at all worried about whether or not Jose Mourinho would remain in the news, you can rest easy. You can just breathe, take a deep breath. It's out there. The Rags are on top of it. So we will touch on several different rumors, I imagine, with Luke Moore, in addition to sort of taking stock of the Premier League right now. Because, again, Leicester City, remaining on top of the table after that big win on the weekend over Manchester City. Arsenal coming up on this weekend. I mean, we're in the middle of the week in which, last weekend Leicester City won over Manchester City. This weekend they get Arsenal. Arsenal comes off of a win against Bournemouth, sure, but they're chasing a title. Big match coming up this weekend. Huge, massive match coming up this weekend. We've got the news. I'm going to hit that here in a second. Make sure you're following us on Twitter and tweeting at me. DavisJSN is my Twitter handle. Soccer Morning, obviously, for the show. We will take whatever you're talking about this morning. And in fact, some things that have started to roll around the Twitter sphere that I'm going to get to probably after we talk to Luke about the Premier League. And one of them is another story claiming something about saving American soccer. And yeah, that stuff always gets to me. I'm not going to rage over it, but perhaps we could talk about the story itself and maybe why the headlines have to be so provocative. Let's go with the news right now. Reports from numerous English tabloids, like I said, suggest that Jose Mourinho has told close friends he will be the next manager of Manchester United. Mourinho was fired by Chelsea in December after the defending Premier League. Let me try that again. I went too fast. Mourinho was fired by Chelsea in December after the defending Premier League champions had slipped down into the relegation zone. Certainly not something anybody expected out of Chelsea. Mourinho loses his job. Now he's floating around free, and every major job that is either comes open or a manager is under threat, he will be linked to. He certainly coveted that Manchester United job. Current Manchester United manager Louis van Gaal is under immense pressure at the moment, with much of the fan base disillusioned by the style of play, which leads me to a question of why on earth would you hire Jose Mourinho to take over if you have issues with the style of play? Okay, then. Michelle Kaufman of the Miami Herald reports that David Beckham is shopping shares of his planned Miami MLS expansion entry. Kaufman reports there has been, quote, vast interest, unquote, from potential investors, including Roman Abramovich, owner of Chelsea, a Chinese group, American parties, multiple groups from the Middle East, including Qatari Sports Investments, who own PSG and obviously are one of the driving forces behind all of these sports interests that the Qatar has gotten themselves into recently. Whether or not that would be an issue for American soccer, a Qatari investment, I don't know. I very seriously doubt it. Beckham's group is aiming to finish the purchase of the plot for their Miami stadium in the Overtown neighborhood by the end of the month. That's underway. The process is underway. Tim Leiweke leading the charge there in Miami, set to meet with city and county officials today, as a matter of fact, to work on other issues, zoning and the like surrounding land acquisition, and whether or not MLS steps up with additional punishment for Orlando City over the tampering claim. If DC does a trade with Orlando, will they be satisfied with whatever they get back enough to avoid filing the tampering claim against Orlando, which I imagine is the kind of thing that needs to happen in order for MLS to institute any punishment on Orlando City. But again, Orlando City has done this a couple of times. This tampering problem seems to pop up more than it should. If you know the rules, follow the rules, unless you don't care. I mean, maybe Adrian Heath and Phil Rollins and Orlando City just don't give a crap. They're going to play by their own rules, and they'll pay the price. I don't know that that's a smart thing to do, but it would be definitely different in MLS, and I'd love to see them actually stand up and say, screw the rules. We're going after who we want to go after. West Ham has advanced past Liverpool 2-1 in the fourth round of the FA Cup. That was yesterday. That was a replay thanks to an extra-time goal from Angelo Ogbonna. Both teams hit the woodwork multiple times during that match. 120 minutes it took. The game saw the return of Philippe Coutinho to the Liverpool lineup. Coutinho scored Liverpool's goal on a free kick just after halftime. One of those low free kicks under the wall. Very smart from Coutinho. Ultimately, it did not lead to Liverpool advancing into the fifth round of the FA Cup. So more woe heaped upon Jurgen Klopp as he tries to figure out how to be successful at Liverpool. Sunderland winger Adam Johnson has pled guilty to one count of sexual activity with a child. The 28-year-old has previously denied 3 charges of sexual activity with a girl under 16, still maintains innocence on 2 of those charges. His case will be formally opened on Friday. The alleged crime saw Johnson arrested in March of 2015. That's not cool. Let's not have this thing happen anymore. And if Adam Johnson is guilty, and he's pleading guilty to one count of this, then he deserves whatever punishment is on the books in England for exploitation and activity with a child. There we go. All right, so that's uncomfortable. What's not going to be uncomfortable is the discussion that we're going to have with Luke Moore from the world-famous Football Ramble about the state of the Premier League. We'll touch on Klopp's troubles, on Mourinho, on Van Gaal, on the open Chelsea job, because Goose Hiddick's not going to be there forever. Who's going to step in there? I've got Claudio Ranieri, certainly a worthy discussion topic, as well as he leads Leicester City to the top of the Premier League table. They are now, I think we have crested that hill, they are now the favorites to lift the trophy at the end of the season, and no one would have had that, say, 6 months ago. All right, let's take a break. Here we go. Football Rambles. Luke Moore joining us on Soccer Morning on a Wednesday. You're listening to Soccer Morning, and it's on backheel.com. Stay right there.
Facing the crowd, you're talking too loud.
Are you? Does that mean you're? I'm sure Trevor will get us going here shortly. Does that mean you're away from the show tomorrow for the?
Welcome to Soccer Morning.
We're back on Soccer Morning. It's backhill.com is the website these days. We're joined now on Skype from Connecticut, as a matter of fact, by Luke Moore from the world famous Football Ramble. He's stateside, taking a little holiday. Although when you go on a holiday, Luke, you're supposed to go. I know there's a good reason for you to be where you are, but you're supposed to go to sunshine and warmth and little drinks with little umbrellas in them, not to the snow.
These climes aren't warmer. They're in fact a great deal colder than what it was like when I left London yesterday. It's about 25 degrees Fahrenheit and about 5 inches of snow up here.
Yeah, look, you know, it's been worse recently, so you're sort of dodging a little bit of the winter that we've already had.
I should make it clear, I'm actually inside.
Well,
I'm
yes, of course.
I'm not outside.
Right.
It's fine inside, yeah.
Be better if you were doing this from an igloo, but I don't think that's the case. Let's dive into some Premier League topics, Luke. Since we are in the winter, and you know we're actually getting ready to come out of the winter, and remarkably, here we are again with Leicester City at the top of the table. That was a statement win on the weekend, was it not?
That was absolutely massive. Yeah, I mean, for those who listen to the show regularly and who've watched the Premier League for a long time, they'll already know this, but this has not really happened before in Premier League football. For those of you who don't know, I mean, the nearest I can think to this happening is when Blackburn won it in '95 and they had a lot of money behind them. Leicester haven't done that at all, and they're just showing no signs at all of letting up. We've seen teams do a flirt with the sort of top of the table up till even sometimes around Christmas, but we've never ever got into the sort of depths of the Ides of February and seen a team do this, and then for them to go to Manchester City and just blow them away. And I've said to you before on this show that, and on my own show as well, that Manchester City are a team that the way to go at them is to get at them. So, you know, if you're playing a big team traditionally, a really good, talented team with a load of wealthy individuals, and they've spent a lot of money to put that team together, what teams sort of so-called lesser teams tend to do is just try and shut up shop and catch them on the break. That's not the way to play against Man City. The way to play against Man City, especially when they've got company out and they've got Yaya Toure on the side, is to hammer them as hard as you can. Mm-hmm. And Leicester were able to do that, and they were able to score early, and that played into their hands. And as soon as I'll tell you something now, I know it sounds like I'm after timing or being wise after the event. As soon as they scored after 3 minutes, I knew that was that. I knew it.
Wow. Well, I mean, certainly, you know, we talk a lot about, if people want to talk about Leicester's spirit and the camaraderie and all those things matter, Luke. We know they call them intangibles, or, you know, certainly there's subjective things we try to measure as we watch this incredible story unfold. But this is not a team that just is getting by on team spirit. I mean, as you said, we've seen clubs, lesser clubs, stay near the top of the table until, you know, January, maybe February before, based on that kind of spirit, but that all kind of fades away as the talent catches up, or the fatigue catches up, or the tactics catch up. And what we're seeing here, and certainly much smarter people than me, tactically speaking, have said this, is that despite the fact that you know, people or other teams are figuring out how Leicester plays, they're still beating those teams.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting set of circumstances, because we're not talking about, I don't want to be patronising to Leicester, because we're not talking about a bunch of unknown players.
Right.
You know, we're not talking about an FA Cup run from the depths of the 5th or 6th tier in English football. We're talking about a team who, you know, they've got some good players. I mean, if you look at the players they have in their lineup and the players they've signed and had for maybe a bit longer, they've got, you know, Kasper Schmeichel has got a lot of experience. You know, he's rated as a goalkeeper. He maybe wasn't rated in the upper echelon of top goalkeepers in the world, but he was still a talented goalkeeper, and he played at Man City, he played at a number of different clubs, and he's now starting to mature as a goalkeeper. He's been really important for them this season. Someone like Sebastian Fuchs at fullback, he's an experienced Austrian international. I think, in fact, he might even be an Austrian captain, or he certainly has been in the past. He's a big player. Someone like Gökhan Inler, who can't even get in the team, he's a very experienced player with international pedigree. Danny Drinkwater was very highly rated, came through at Man United, was instrumental in them being promoted to the Premier League, and then spent most of the last season injured, and is now come into his own. Kante was being looked at by a lot of clubs. I don't think anyone thought he'd be as good as he actually is, but he was still being looked at. Vardy, his story is well known. Okazaki was highly rated. These are players who, Mark Albrighton's played in the Premier League for years. He lost his way at Aston Villa, was released or went his separate ways from Villa in the summer. No one questioned his quality. I just think this is a team whose overall value is so much more than the sum of their parts, and that is coming back to what you just said about the intangibles, about confidence, about good management, about momentum. So much of football at every level. And I've played terrible level of football before, but it rings true through every single level, is momentum and confidence. If you can contain your confidence, maintain it, and then protect it, you can achieve an awful lot. And they're showing that. And they've got no fear. They're playing with no fear. They'll go to the Emirates at the weekend, and they'll play exactly the same way. They might get beaten 3 or 4-2 or something like that. Yeah, but they might win.
As you said, I mean, I don't want to say this after you're calling the victory for Leicester City on the weekend have to go one up over Manchester City, just because by the way that they play. And this is, as we're going along here, this is hindsight a bit, but Claudio Ranieri is a perfect fit for this group of players, clearly, and it's something about him, and certainly he's starting to get the plaudits he deserves as the architect, the director of what Leicester City is doing.
Yeah, I mean, just to go back to the Man City thing, the reason I knew that they would do well is because they score early. They're a confident team anyway. Once they score, they know they can score. And not only that, they play brilliantly on the break with so much pace. As soon as they score a goal after a few minutes, Man City, who are expected to win that game, by the way, have got to come out. And as soon as they come out, they leave gaps. And they leave gaps and make poor decisions with sort of substandard centre-halves. They're going to get hammered, and they're going to get really, really badly punished. And all it would need to do was Leicester to be ruthless, and they absolutely were that. So that's part of the reason why I'm saying that. And I just think, they're going to go to the Emirates at the weekend, and they're going to play exactly the same way.
Right.
And if I were an Arsenal fan, I'd be a little bit scared about it. Because they might blow Arsenal to bits. You know what I mean? It could happen, and Arsenal have got this sort of thing about being almost the opposite of Leicester in terms of mentality. They're just a bit soft-centered and a little bit sort of tend to feel a bit sorry for themselves when things don't go their way, and that could be a really potent mix against a team like Leicester at the moment.
Well, I mean, you frustrate Arsenal. You certainly get in their heads, and there's probably no one better suited for that right now than Leicester, who's not supposed to be there in the first place, is 5 points up on Arsenal, and there's that sense that. That they have what we deserve, and maybe Arsenal sometimes feels like they play like they are entitled, and that's certainly not going to work.
I also like the something about pairing with Leicester, because I like that Wes Morgan had a difficult time of it last season. He learned an awful lot. He weighed in with a couple of own goals. He got caught a bit short a few times. And I wouldn't say he was a laughingstock, because that would be unfair, but he was well noticed, certainly around my peers on the show I do, as being a little bit short of quality. But he's learned so much from that. When you put him alongside a really experienced, strong defender like Robert Huth, it's a great combination, and they're really playing their part as well. Obviously, Huth weighed in with a couple of goals at the weekend, which is above and beyond the Call of Duty, but every little helps and all that. I think they probably can get into Arsenal. I think Arsenal are mentally fragile, because I think their manager is mentally fragile. So they're just a reflection of that, really. And until I'm not calling for Wenger to move on or whatever, it's not really anything to do with me. But as soon as Wenger moves on and they get a more robust manager, I think, someone with a bit of fresh impetus, I think they'll be an awful lot better. But I would be fearful if I was an Arsenal fan, let me tell you that.
Yeah, let's. Okay, so you've got Leicester City, again, 5 points up on Spurs and Arsenal. I'm going to talk about Spurs here in a minute, because I want to get your your take on whether or not they are a legitimate title contender at this point. And then let's talk about City, though, because they did lose to Leicester. As you said, once Leicester went up, it seemed to play into the Foxes' hands. And one of the things that is frustrating to me, and I'm no City fan, but I certainly was, and I'm going to use the word was, a Yaya Toure fan, is that it seems as though Yaya doesn't have anything left for this team anymore. And maybe that's just, I'm judging on one game, Luke. Maybe that's unfair. But, there certainly were times that it did not seem as though Yaya Toure was playing anywhere near what he should be capable of, even at this point in his career.
Yeah, I've got a lot of opinions about Yaya Toure. I think he's probably the archetypal modern super rich club midfield player. I can see him going somewhere like PSG next, maybe, if they'll have him. But I think he's probably about 18 months over his sell, maybe about a year over his sell-by date. Not because I don't think he's a good player, but because I think he isn't hungry enough. He doesn't want to work for the team. He doesn't want to do his bit, and he's essentially coasting. And he spends all his time moaning. And he got his preemptive strike in a couple of weeks ago when it was announced that Guardiola was going to take over, saying, "No, I don't want to play for Guardiola. I won't be staying around." It's like, well, mate, it's not your decision. You're saying that because Guardiola's going to move you on probably the first day he takes the job. The first day he takes a job, probably the first thing he's going to do is say, "See you later," because you're not part of this team. You can't play for a team that I want to have. So you're going to be out of here. And so that's in many ways, I think that sort of summed up the type of character he is. It's sort of all about him, really. And we know about all the stuff about the African Player of the Year thing and the birthday cake thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fairly risible, really.
Yeah.
And some of the performances he puts in, especially when it's a tough game. If they play at home to Sunderland or whatever, although actually, to be fair, Sunderland did play quite well against them last time. But you understand what I mean. When they play against like a slightly less able team, and he's at home, he's able to be a bit of a flat track bully, and he can weigh in with a goal or two here and there. But he does not put the effort in, and he's not a sort of player you want at all when things aren't going your way. I would have probably dragged him off after 3 minutes as soon as Leicester scored, if it were me. But obviously they couldn't do that. So yeah, I think when they miss company as well, they just look so soft-centered.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, company is obviously key to that, but you'll bring up the Guardiola thing, and clearly that can't. I understand that you sort of want to put Pellegrini out of his misery as a lame duck coach. Everyone knows that Guardiola's coming, or at least there was a reasonable suspicion that it was City that Guardiola was going to sign up with. There's connections between City and Barcelona and Pep. But now it has to unsettle a team, and a team like City, which has always seemed to be relatively fragile in the sense that there are 25 different egos on that team that are all working in a different direction. To have the Pep Guardiola thing be officially confirmed can't be good for whatever they're trying to do with the rest of their season.
No, it's an interesting one. I think Pellegrini seems to be a very popular chap and someone who everyone in football seems to respect. And he won't be short of a job, and he's handled himself with dignity, and he's done a pretty good job at City. Maybe they've fallen short in Europe, perhaps, but he's certainly not been the first Man City manager to be guilty of that, and that's clearly part of the reason they've got Guardiola in. What I would say is I think the league title will be beyond them this season, but I wouldn't go. I mean, if you were somebody who particularly dislikes Manchester City, I wouldn't go around celebrating for too long, because I think they've been setting everything up for Guardiola to take over for a number of years now, and everything is going to be in place for him to be there for a reasonable period of time and to deliver a sustained amount of success in his time there. So we might be entering, as of the summer, a sort of a Manchester City and Guardiola dominated English football landscape for a couple of years at least. The only sort of caveat to that being that Guardiola doesn't really stick around anywhere long. But if he finds somewhere he likes, he can deliver, as we've seen in the past. And I think he is probably about to deliver some dominance for Manchester City in the Premier League.
But that's in the future. Right now, we have, again, a very fascinating title race. In second place, by virtue of a better goal differential than Arsenal, is Spurs. And it's the same questions, maybe with a different kind of tenor when it comes to Tottenham, Luke, and whether or not they are legitimately title contenders. And you also have this, the rumor swirling that United is kicking the tires on Pochettino perhaps for next season. So how does Spurs manage to kind of overcome their reputation as bottlers and make a real run at this?
Yeah, I mean, the first part of that I'll tackle is the Pochettino thing. I think that is a danger. I think he's clearly a very highly rated coach. He's not found his level yet. That's no disrespect to Spurs, but he's not found his level yet. He's not really managed. Well, he obviously hasn't managed in the Champions League yet, so he'll be keen to do that. But he'll be keen to do that with Spurs, and I can't see that not happening next season. Now, Manchester United are a big club. There's always going to be a hierarchy in football, right? No matter how much certain fans of certain clubs don't like to admit it, Manchester United are just objectively a bigger club than Spurs. So if Manchester United come knocking, or Real Madrid come knocking for someone of Hispanic origin, it's going to be a big pull. I think Pochettino likes what he's doing there. I think he thinks he's got a project there, and I like the way he goes about his business. Spurs are absolutely 100% Premier League title contenders because, and this is no disrespect to Leicester, especially given what I've just said, because I like Leicester and I'd love to see them do it. The team above them is Leicester. Mm-hmm. It's not a Mourinho Chelsea. They're not 5 points clear, and it's Chelsea, and they've got Mourinho in their pomp in 2006 or whatever. This is as much as we all love the Leicester story, this is a fallible Leicester team, and Spurs look very, very solid. They're playing football the right way. They're not doing things like winning games, getting out of jail like Liverpool do sometimes, beating Norwich 5-4 away or whatever. You know, they're solid. They're winning games. I think they've only lost a couple or 2 or 3 all season, and they've got the best defence in the league. And when you've got the best defence in the league, in February you've always got a chance. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, they're title contenders. They've got a great combination of sort of playing with superb tempo, but they also look really robust as well. And it's nice to see. And even when someone like Vertonghen, who's been such a big player for them at centre-back, goes out injured, someone like Wimmer comes in and looks very solid, looks very well drilled, very sort of savvy, even though he's not that experienced in the Premier League. So, and that's because they're well coached. This is probably the best coached Spurs team I've seen since I can remember. I would say the 2010-11 side are better individuals with players like Modric and Bale and those types. But in terms of a team, in terms of a well-coached unit, this is the best Spurs team I've probably seen in the Premier League era.
Well, and they Spurs went through several different managers trying to hit on the right formula there, and they finally seem to have gotten it with Pochettino. But then, as you said, that the danger is whether or not the bigger club comes knocking, and now you're back to square one. But if they manage to at least make the Champions League, and as you said, you can't see that not happening, perhaps that's enough to entice Pochettino to stay there.
Because Jay, sorry to cut in, but it's essentially a little bit of transition at Spurs at the moment because this new stadium they want, because of the things that they have, like a wage structure, which I don't really want to break. And I'd like to have seen them in January bringing a really experienced midfield player, just someone who can settle them down when the going gets tough sometimes, and towards the back end of the season, the business end, when it's stressful and pressure, you'd love to have someone to calm them down in there. I'm not saying they can't do it, and they won't be fun as they are, but I think that would be a little bit of a value, especially given that people like Dele Alli and Eric Dyer, who are inexperienced players, great players, but inexperienced players, might fall a touch short, and you wouldn't blame them for doing so. But the problem is, one, they've got a wage structure, right? So they don't want to break it. So they don't want to go after a player like, I don't know, not him now, but the equivalent of like an Edgar Davids or an Idaho Johnson, players they've signed in the past who are experienced and offered a lot of experience to the rest of the younger players, or a Laurent Blanc like Man United did back in the day. So secondly, they can't really do that because of this stadium thing that's coming up, and they want to make sure they balance the books and all that other stuff. And Levy, the chairman, there's got a lot of track record in not really putting his hand in his pocket. But the thing about Pochettino, just to sum all this up, is that what the coaches want to do, right? They want to win things, right? But they also, given that Pochettino is a coach as well, he wants to work with the best players. So I can see down the line, and of course I understand they might break this wage structure slightly as they get into the Champions League because they'll be afford to do so. But down the line, if Levy isn't giving Pochettino the best players to work with, and he knows he can work with better players elsewhere, as a coach, you'd think he'd be tempted by that. I'm not saying he'd go, but I'm just saying he probably would be tempted by that, and that's something that Spurs need to be mindful of.
Yeah, it may not come down directly to this, but you certainly have to take into account the fixture list for both of obviously Arsenal's still in the mix, and we're not discounting them, and even City can make a run at this. But between Leicester and Spurs, those are what I have up in front of me right now. Luke, and I've looked at Leicester's already. It's fairly forgiving. I mean,
they've got 8 or 9 winnable games coming up.
They do
after Arsenal.
They do, and they close the season away to Chelsea, which you don't expect that game to ultimately be the decider, but it could be. And they have Manchester United last week of April, but beyond that, it really is a lot of winnable games, which means I wonder if that means more pressure on them. I mean, sort of in that reverse sort of trap game mentality that comes with we're supposed to beat we're supposed to beat Swansea when we're at home, but then you slip up.
The funny thing is, like with Leicester, is like you talk about them going to Stamford Bridge on the final day, and I'm instinctively, because I've been doing this for quite a long time now. Instinctively, I think, oh yeah, that's a tough one for them. They'll need to get that sewn up before they go there. But then at the same time, I think, well, last weekend they smashed Manchester City at the Etihad, who are a better team than Chelsea this season, and they've beaten Liverpool at home. Okay, they come unstuck at home to Arsenal, but they've got a chance to avenge that at the Emirates at the weekend. They may well do so. They've got 8 or 9 games coming up after this Arsenal game, which I know I don't want to be over the top about it, but in theory, they could feasibly win every single one of them. Yeah. And if they do that, they would have won the league anyway. Yeah. So there's nothing of the flat trap bully about them. It's almost like they play with reckless abandon against whoever they're playing. They don't care who it is. But at the same time, they tend to keep themselves quite solid as well.
All the more impressive that they are here, 5 points up on everybody else, having gone through the most difficult part of their schedule.
Absolutely. If you look at how. A great example of this. If you look at how they dealt with City at the Etihad, and then go back a few weeks or a month or two, and look at how they dealt with Man City at home. Shut up shop, 1 up front, 0-0. Job done. They can play both ways. So they've shown against arguably the best squad in the Premier League, they can shut up shop and frustrate them and get out of there with a draw when they're not playing very well and they don't have someone like, I think they had one or two players missing. And then when they're full strength and they're confident and they're picking the same first 11 for the fourth game in a row, whatever it was, they'll blow the same team away later on in the season. So they're ticking all the boxes. There's nothing lucky about this.
No.
It doesn't feel like it's a lucky fluke.
No.
They're doing everything right. And they'll, do you know what? They'll line up at Arsenal at the weekend with the same 11, the same formation, buzzing with confidence, and they will hit. You watch it, I'm sure you will. They will hit Arsenal 100 mile an hour for the first 10 minutes in that game, and you see what happens. And they could go feasibly two ahead, and then we'll have a proper game on that. It could be the game of the season.
Yeah, Luke, you're here in the States. I'm sure that if you flip by NBC Sports, you'll see the advertisements for the weekend, and it's interesting to see NBC sort of jump on the Leicester bandwagon and use them as means to get people to watch this weekend. I mean, certainly people are usually attracted to the big clubs. I mean, Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United, those are going to do well on American television, relatively speaking. But now it's, watch the Foxes, because this is going to be probably the most amazing story we've seen in quite some time. And I sort of annoyed some people here because I spent the greater part of an hour the other day trying to compare Leicester City winning the title, if they get it done, to any other team sports story in my knowledge base, and I can't find one. I can't find anything that even comes close to what they might do should they actually win the title.
Yeah, I wouldn't even profess to be an expert in football or soccer, but I certainly wouldn't profess to be an expert in any other sport, but right. I can't think of anything like this, really. I mean, because the reason I say that, and with the caveat that I'm not really au fait with any American sport apart from football, probably, but you've got to remember that this is a 38 game season in probably the most, arguably, some people would maybe take issue with this, but I'll stick with it, arguably the most competitive league in world soccer. Mm-hmm. So for them to sustain it over such a long period. So we have teams who win the FA Cup, right? So the team I support, Portsmouth, won the FA Cup in 2008. That was the first time in a while that a team that wasn't traditionally seen as, in quotes, a big team won the FA Cup. And that was amazing. But at the same time, what is it, 7 games, something like that? It's not a huge amount of games. Sure. And they only played one Premier League team on the way. So you've got to factor it in and look at all the different variables. I saw when you said that on Twitter, someone was talking about the Golden State Warriors in the NBA. I don't know enough about basketball to know that, but I realised that was quite a big story as well when they did so well. Sure. But I can't see that in the same bracket.
Obviously, American sports typically built for, we have the drafts that reward the bad teams for the next year. You get the pick of the best players. So, clearly there's a built-in system.
And that just doesn't happen in English.
Yeah, that doesn't happen in English football. That doesn't allow for. Leicester has to do it all on their own. They have to figure out how to make enough money, to spend enough money, to be competitive, and that's why this is remarkable to me. The difference in resources between them and the teams that are directly behind them. Let's before we run out of time, I definitely want to talk about Manchester United and the situation there. 1-1 draw on the weekend with Chelsea. Diego Costa continues to be Diego Costa. And the constant speculation about Van Gaal's position, the next manager of Manchester United. I reported it. I did my news hit this morning, and I referenced that the tabloids are saying that Mourinho's telling friends he's taking the Manchester United job, or he's going to get that job. I don't know how much stock we put in those stories yet. But it can't be good for Van Gaal, and it can't be good for United, and I still don't understand any world in which Jose Mourinho is a good fit for that club.
Well, they've got no direction, sort of on or off the pitch at the moment, and the reason we're feeling it a lot more keenly as football fans is because United have been such a steamroller of a club under Ferguson. It must go without saying that United would be in the conversation for every trophy every year for a number of years, and now that's not happening. We're noticing it a lot more keenly. They're losing their way off the pitch. They've got no real direction under Ed Woodward, in my opinion, and they've got Van Gaal, who, although was a great coach in his day is clearly gone, and he's not making any long-term plans to secure the future of the club because he's not going to stay at the latest beyond 2017, and most people think he's going to go in the summer. So that's the background to this. For those who don't know, the Jose Mourinho thing is an interesting one because there are pros and cons as to why he may get the job. The pros are that he's got George Mendes in his corner, who, he's the most powerful agent in football and the man who runs the game really, in terms of at a player and manager level. and he's got the fact that he's won Premier League titles. I mean, he's won three. He's won. You know, look, he's won. If we take it out of the focus of the recent failure he's had this season, he's won three Premier League titles in about half the time that Arsene Wenger's won his 3 Premier League titles. So he's obviously won the Champions League as well a couple of times. He's won the treble in Italy. We know all this. So he's got the pedigree. The problem with Mourinho is he only ever gives you trophies. And I know that sounds pretty glib, but for a club the size of Man United, they probably want a bit more than that. They probably want a legacy. They probably want someone who's going to continue that amazing tradition of bringing these young players through. They want someone who's going to treat the club with respect and not shame it in the media and all this other stuff. That's what they want. And that's why someone like Bobby Charlton, who's a legend at the club, comes out and says, we don't know if Mourinho is the right fit for this club. Mm-hmm. It sounds a bit pious and it sounds a bit sort of... a little bit sort of arrogant, but
Sure.
United have earned that right.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
there are pros and cons to him taking it. I don't know if he's going to do it. I have no insight into it. It doesn't surprise me that Mourinho has been talking about it in that way because he'll do anything to engineer his way into that team and anything to engineer his way into another rivalry with Guardiola, who he hates and who he wants to get one over on all the time, which is what drives him, really. So it'll be fascinating to see how it pans out in the summer. There are going to be other options for them, though. I mean, Pochettino, as you've mentioned, Simeone, as we've talked about before. So there will be other options for United if they don't want to carry on with Van Gaal next season. And also, because Ryan Giggs, who's been doing his apprenticeship for a while, might come too soon for him, but he's an option as well. So United have got all the power here because they've got such a big draw. They can attract any manager they want, really.
Sure, but obviously the managers most coveted over the last calendar year, Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, both of them have gone to rivals. So that's
they've got to make a move, Jason. They have to make a move 100%. I mean, I'm just saying they've got options here, right?
Yeah.
So Mourinho is a controversial character. He's someone who possibly it could go wrong, and when it goes wrong pretty fucking badly and pretty quickly, and it always does go wrong after about 3 years. So if United want to make that same mistake again that they've made with Van Gaal, if people consider that to be a mistake with Van Gaal, then obviously they're welcome to do so. But you got to do so. You got to do so at their own risk, haven't they?
Yeah, it would seem to me hiring Mourinho, and again, no insight. It seems an odd fit. Everything Charlton said. That to me would be the admission on the part of Manchester United that we are just like everybody else, that we're not different anymore. I mean, I think Barcelona went through this, over the course of 4 or 5 years with Pep Guardiola leaving and the change in their sponsorship situation. It's the same thing. I mean, obviously United is a business. Everybody knows it's a business. Everybody hates the Glazers because of the money they take out of the club, but they're still Manchester United. They still have that aura about them. And if you hire Jose Mourinho, you're basically saying, screw the aura. We're in this to win one Premier League title and then watch the whole thing fall apart and go find somebody else.
Yeah, I completely agree because we have to agree with that because of the track record that Mourinho showed in the past. I mean, the only thing I can add to that is that he has said. I mean, he said when he took over at Chelsea again, he said, I've always travelled around. I've always moved here and there. I've always been a modern day sort of Bela Gutmann and the third season is fatal and all that. But I found Chelsea is my home. The reason I've come back here is because I love living in London. I love this club. I want to stay here for a long time this time. It's just different for me now. But the problem is, from what I can make out, he didn't adjust or change any of his tactics or his coaching methods. No. So it just fell to pieces again. Yeah. The aura seems to sort of drop off of him after a couple of years. The players don't want to play for him anymore. They find him abrasive, and he can't get it back. And that's what fails so spectacularly. So it seems to me that even if he does want to create a legacy at a truly big club like Man United, and of course, why wouldn't you want to do that? I don't know if he's capable of doing that. And if he goes to a club like, I mean, maybe not Chelsea because Chelsea are a big player now, but if he goes to a club that are slightly less illustrious than Man United, I can see why a club would want him, right? Because he's going to deliver trophies. Yeah. And for some clubs, just trophies is enough. That's great. That's ideal for them. But I don't know if it is enough for a club like Man United. It obviously wasn't enough for a club like Real Madrid. And so Inter's a great example, right? Inter had never won the treble before, and they won it under Mourinho. That was enough for them. He was a fairly unpopular guy here and there, especially in the media. But he's still going to be a legend there at all times because he was the first manager to deliver an Italian club to win the treble. So, but there are levels, There are levels. And for Manchester United, for an organisation like them, I don't think Mourinho is going to be able to deliver what they need. And that's why they're umming and ahhing about it. And I would suggest that if it's taken them this long to make a decision to hire him, they probably shouldn't be hiring him.
All right, last thing here, very briefly. Obviously, this is a lost season for Chelsea. They're in 13th. We don't expect them to be pulled back into the relegation zone, but they're not going to finish anywhere near their usual place in the table. Goose Hiddink is is caretaker right now. We've been through the Didier Drogba saga. Apparently, he's going to play one more year in MLS, and then maybe show up on Chelsea's doorstep for next season. But they need a manager. They're going to need somebody for next year. I've seen a couple of names. I mean, Simeone. Everyone that I talked to in Spain says that he's going to stay. They think he's committed to that project there. Beyond him, it's a couple of Italians, Conte and Allegri, and maybe Allegri's the guy. But is that the kind of direction that they should be going
in? First of all, I don't know why they don't keep. I don't know why they don't talk to Gus Hiddink to take it over sort of more long term. Maybe he's not interested. I don't know. I'll miss something on that because he seems to do very well whenever he goes there. I think in his first spell he only lost one game, won the FA Cup as well. So I don't know if they've lost a game under Gus Hiddink this time round, have they? They were close to against United and they scored that last one at equaliser. Anyway, clearly Gus Hiddink isn't part of the conversation, so maybe there's a reason for that. Max Allegri, I think, is probably a bit underrated. I'm not sure if everyone's completely doing cartwheels about the type of football he plays, but he was a whisker away from delivering the treble with Juventus last year. Of course, they won the double, and then they were beating the Champions League final by a great Barcelona side. So clearly, he's got the credentials. I'm not sure. I'd be taking Conte over him. Of course, he's international manager now, and it's a bit of a different kettle of fish. And I think with Chelsea, they can sort of tempt anyone they want. It seems, because I can remember when they were trying to get Villas-Boas, and he was saying, "Oh, I don't want to go. I'm happy to here. I want to stay for maybe another year or so. Then I'll think about it." And then he just completely changed his mind because he was offered so much money that he's like, "I've got to take it while I can, and I want to wage in the Premier League eventually, so I might as well do it now." Of course, that went wrong. I'm not saying that it will go wrong if they go after Allegri. Simeone does look very committed to Atletico Madrid. He's got everything set up there. He can do what he wants to do. I wonder whether he can repeat what he repeated recently, where he won the league, and obviously they got to the Champions League final as well. I wonder if that is the upper limit for a team like Real Madrid, like Atletico Madrid, and whether he can maybe achieve his loftier ambitions as a manager at a club like Chelsea. That'll be interesting. But it looks to me like Allegri is the front runner, and I think actually he's a little bit underrated as a coach. And I wouldn't be averse. We're talking about Italian managers. If I was a Chelsea fan, I wouldn't be averse for them going back after Ancelotti. But of course, they've missed the chance to do that. I think he's an excellent manager, and I think he was really harshly treated by them.
Yeah. They are already booked up there, Carlo Ancelotti.
Yeah.
Luke Moore from the Football Ramble joining us from a snowy Connecticut, and excellent stuff, Luke. Appreciate the chat. Enjoy your time in the winter.
If I get snowed in, I'm going to send for help, so keep an eye out.
There you go. We'll get some provisions to you somehow.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Luke. Let's step aside. We'll come back. We'll take some phone calls on a Wednesday. It is Soccer Morning on backheel.com. Man, that was good. All right, stay there. Be right back.
Welcome to Soccer Morning. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
All right, here we go. Soccer Morning is on the air. Phone lines are ready to go. 646-832-3909 is the phone number. Jump in and talk Premier League, all that stuff we just covered with Luke Moore from the Football Ramble. Fantastic stuff. Next time around, Luke mentioned this himself, as a matter of fact. Next time around, we'll take some phone calls with Luke on the show. And you should have SiriusXM subscription so that you can get SiriusXM FC Channel 85, which has the Football Ramble phone-in show on Thursday afternoons. Brilliant stuff. So you can, partake there. We'll get Luke some phone calls here. We'll take phone calls now here on Soccer Morning. And a couple of things that are out there to discuss, and including, obviously, as again, the Premier League weekend. I'm just seeing that the word is broken that Guillermo Barros Schelotto, who was at Palermo as a manager after having started his managerial career in his native Argentina, obviously former Columbus Crew great, a man who led that team to an MLS Cup title in 2009, has had to leave Palermo after 4 matches because of licensing problems. He can't get his UEFA license. He doesn't have the necessary experience to pass that exam. So it's a problem for Guillermo Barros Schelotto in Europe, but maybe that means something for MLS teams who might take a look at him as a manager. I thought somebody should be signing up Guillermo Barros Schelotto in this country. Aaron's on the line. What's up, Aaron?
Hey, how's it going? That was a great interview.
Yeah, it looks great.
Earlier, I wanted to go into a topic that I think you brought up about a week ago on the concept of a European Super League, which I think just looked kind of fantasy-like, but I think that's actually gaining dangerous momentum now, and because the chairman of Bayern Munich, is 100% behind it, and it sounds like he's actually driving it, which I mean, no offense in a funny way, but if a German is driving something, it's going to get there.
Well, a bunch of, several people within German football have taken a pretty aggressive stance on the idea of a Super League, and this is not new. The Bayern Munich chairman, who is that? Is it Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, he's done it. The CEO of the Bundesliga has said some things. It seems as though the Germans are driving this. I don't know if the rest of Europe is ready to get on board, though, Aaron. And like you said, maybe if a German is driving something, you're going to get there eventually. But I don't know how quickly this comes together.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that is very dangerous about it, though, is I mean, we all already know this is a business, but there's this kind of fragmentation of the business that is still a normal league structure.
Yeah.
And so when you start playing with this kind of, it's one of the great things about this, about this game. And it's, and I have debates with other people who don't know that much about soccer football. They ultimately get back to, well, the rules don't change to make it, to make me happy. I mean, like if you want to get down to the brass tacks of why people like a lot of our sports is basically we change our rules to make fans happy, whatever happy means at that moment in history. And this game doesn't really do that much. I mean, there's a few edge things that are logical, I think, like some of the goal line tackle and so on. And this league kind of model, which goes back a long time, really, has never really been messed with.
No,
and I just don't think you get a lot. I mean, if you look at kind of the BCS model in American college football, I mean, they have their own problems that are even worse than that with pay to play. Not even getting enough money.
To jump in,
if you think about it.
Well, just to jump in, Aaron, when I had the discussion, I think it was with Christian Hennig, and we talked about the possibility, and I brought up some of these things that have been said in the German press. To me, it is such a fundamental change in the way that soccer operates that I mean, we are not talking. First of all, I hope nobody takes it lightly, but we are talking about you immediately relegate everything that's not the Super League to secondary status. Now, we already. Well,
what I would argue is that you create Europa A, Europa B.
Yeah.
And then you have Champions League again, and then there's just Europa A, Europa B, and which is not the worst thing in the world if you actually kind of forced a competition. And I really think that's the issue, is that it's like the thing I've always had a problem with the NIT and the NCAAs. It's like they never kind of gave each side a chance to kind of earn it,
right?
Like really extra earn it. Yeah. And I think, it's just annoying to me when you have these kind of tournament systems that doesn't reward execution in those other tournaments with something in the main tournament. And I think that's part of the problem, is that I don't think this has anything to do with the best clubs. This has to do with the protection racket of these kind of oligopolies.
Absolutely. That's the problem.
Who are just entertainment brands. And they're basically, what it is it's Comcast, Verizon, Sony. It's all the usual, if these were American companies saying the same thing these clubs are doing, we'd have antitrust discussion.
Yeah. Aaron, I got a bunch of people lined up who want to get in on the air today, and so I'm going to let you go. But I totally agree with you. This is not about... It's not about the soccer, and it's not about trying to put together the best league possible. It's about, as you said, it's protecting the businesses that these clubs have become, and that is fundamental. And while that movement has already started, and we've already entrenched ourselves in a world where the business side of the game is dominant, almost over the competition side or the populist side. At least we can fool ourselves a little bit right now. If we go Super League, we can't fool ourselves at all anymore. That's where I'm at with that. Yeah, appreciate it, Aaron. Thanks for the call, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Wish I had more time to talk to Aaron, but I got a bunch of people on. Let's go to Nelly down in Texas. What's up, Nelly?
Hey, Jason. So I know yesterday you told me over Twitter that you talked about the futsal.
I did.
I wanted to give you my opinion about it.
Okay.
I kind of hate it that you have Mark Cuban and NBA owners and even world football teams that are investing in the futsal league. I've watched a few futsal games. It's a cool sport. I don't see it booming here as much as of the investors may think. I'd rather see these owners invest in MLS, put their money in the league, make it grow more.
Well, sure. You can't look. I'm with you, Nelly, and in fact, I have a column going up, one of my regular places today, U.S. soccer players, where I sort of address how frustrating it is to see Mark Cuban jump in on futsal rather than one of the professional leagues we've already got here playing outdoor soccer. But you can't force a guy to put his money in something. He's choosing to do this. I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know that it catches on. I think it's going to be a hard sell. But more than that, more than anything about whether or not it's a success or, whether, maybe some of these other big clubs being involved does change the feeling of it for me a little bit. But more than anything else, it just occurs to me that this is not connected at all to the soccer I care about. Now, I might watch this and enjoy this, but I will recognize as I'm doing so that a futsal league in the United States of America has nothing to do with the growth of the sport on the outdoor side, to me, because it's essentially they are two different sports, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. It's a completely different sport. It has its own championship, different players.
Yep.
And maybe Mark Cuban is not investing in soccer because I don't think the Hunts here in FC Dallas, they want any other partnerships. But I'm thinking of other NBA owners, like the owner of the Nets, who's investing in a team in New York. Why not invest on the Cosmos or something, or try to help out another team?
There's going to be
grow in MLS.
Yeah, Mark Cuban once upon a time was in the running to buy the Chicago Cubs, right? So maybe Mark Cuban could buy and be part of the Sting. I mean, he's a Pittsburgh guy, right? Is that where he's from?
Yeah,
maybe
he's a Pittsburgh guy. Yeah, I was thinking of that. He could invest and try to get a team over there.
I mean,
he's always trying to look to buy a franchise. I think having him in MLS would be so great.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
Just because of who he is.
I want to get, and that's the thing. Like maybe this will never happen in a billion years. I gotta roll. Nelly, I appreciate the call. And that's the thing. I'm not excited about the futsal league. That's not me saying you shouldn't be if you like futsal. And I understand the skill set, but for me, I would be excited for the futsal league if I thought it was going to impact American soccer, the outdoor game, in any particular way. If it was going to give kids an opportunity to play more futsal, I'd be on board with it. But that's not what this is. It's buying up the best futsal players in the world, bringing them to the United States, and trying to create a wholly new entertainment product that ultimately is going to compete with MLS and NASL for entertainment dollars. Let's go to Roger down in Florida. Hey, Roger.
Hey, Jason. Hey, I got a few things I want to talk about because, man, it's just such a exciting time to be a soccer fan here in Central Florida. But concerning Man U and Mourinho, I think that's totally crazy.
Totally.
And I think what Man U should really be going after Pellegrini. He's like the perfect fit. He did better with Man City.
Okay.
And I just think it's a no-brainer. Like, if Pep Guardiola ends up doing a bad job with Man City, then it just puts him in even a better place.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I think there's a couple of problems with it from a United perspective. One, are you really going to take Manchester City's cast off if you're Manchester United? 'Cause how does that go over with your fan base? And number two, he's 62. It's not as though Manuel Pellegrini is going to be coaching for another 10 years. He's probably going to want to step aside and retire in the next couple of years. I think the Chilean national team is going to come calling. I think he said no to them already, but he's gonna be out of a job come the summer. Maybe he decides to go and take a shot at that job instead, with Sampioli having moved on. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, another thing I wanted to mention too is we keep talking about pro rel in this country, and I think we need to just realize that ship has sailed because here in Orlando, we just got the Orlando City B team, and they came out and said it frankly, and I mean, I don't know why I didn't realize this immediately, is that team is solely there to develop people for the pro team. And so it's just become a system where, this is how they're developing their players, and they're not really competing for a trophy in the USL now.
Yeah. I mean, they are. I see what you're saying, and obviously the dream of pro rel is never going to die. I mean, while it would, I'm not saying it would be a good thing for people to sort of accept the practical situation that ship has sailed, because I do think that there's always a possibility. There is, over a long enough timeline, there is an American soccer structure in place that lends itself to pro rel, and maybe there's a discussion. It's just not going to happen anytime soon, Roger. It's just not. We're far enough away from it that to kind of bog ourselves down in that discussion day in and day out is missing some of the broader issues that American soccer has to face.
Right. Yeah. Hey, and one more thing is, man, I just got to realize, like, recently how much I take for granted being an American, because this whole thing with Leicester City just at the top of the table, I hear nothing but cynical comments from the English.
Oh, really?
Like, why don't they have any belief?
I think
they could absolutely win it.
I think they're coming around. In fact, I saw a tweet this morning that I didn't really follow up. I didn't click any links, but I saw a tweet this morning. Somebody said that 8 of 10 Guardian football pundits are picking Leicester now to go ahead and finish this out and win the title. So, all right. In fact, here I got the link right here. Managed to Google it quickly. Look at my Google skills. Who will win the Premier League title? Guardian writers picked their winners. So we've got Dominic Fifield, Leicester City. Andy Hunter picks Spurs. David Hittner picks Leicester City. Jamie Jackson picks Leicester City. So people are coming around. Amy Lawrence picks Leicester City. I love her work. Barney Ronay he picked Manchester City. What? Yeah. Barney, come on. So look.
But you see, Americans would take this and say, well, look at, all of our players on this team. We're going to win the World Cup.
Yeah. You're right.
Anyway, thanks for the time.
Appreciate it, Roger. And some people would call that delusion, on the part of an American soccer fan base who gets out ahead of themselves occasionally. There's this dynamic within football, within soccer, and I think it comes from the English to identify it. What Roger's talking about there, I think it comes from the English. It's this notion that you're supposed to know your place, that you're not supposed to dream above your station. That you're supposed to recognize, we're the United States of America, on the international stage. We're the United States of America. We've never won anything. We've never really done anything. Of course, we're not good enough to do X, Y, or Z that some fans are out there dreaming about. I don't like that. And the same thing goes with Leicester City. Why not? I mean, especially now. They've established their CV, as they would say, and their CV is pretty damn good. They have the talent, the ability, and the manager to go win this title. Steve, in LA, what's up?
Hey, I was watching the game this past weekend, and after the game, there was this documentary called Under the Crest. I don't know if you're familiar.
I think it's Behind the Crest, right? And it's about West. Is about West?
Yeah,
oh, Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace.
Yeah. And I was wondering because you were saying like a couple of days ago that maybe they're going to make a Leicester City movie or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you think that like NBC has like some cameras there already, like just filming it.
Well, I would hope that
ready to pump it out like in 2 years or something like that.
Yeah, I would hope that somebody who has the rights and the access is going to document the run out for Leicester City, and because if they do, I mean, if they don't win it, it's a great story considering where they are right now. But if they do win it, you're going to want that behind the scenes stuff and to be able to, as you said, like Behind the Crest. I haven't seen any of that. I'm sure it's interesting. I do know that what's the QPR documentary, Trevor, for a 4-year plan, which was fantastic. That had a lot of behind the scenes stuff. If they can get those cameras, and traditionally English football and European soccer clubs don't like giving that sort of access, but if they do, it'd be amazing.
Right. Yeah. Oh, and one more thing. Your show is way too early for us in the West Coast.
I know, man. I'm sorry. Yeah, look, and I know it costs a little bit of money, but it's worth it to go to get the Sirius XM subscription so that you can jump on at the. It's from 8. It'll be from 8 to 10 your time, so that's better, right?
Yeah, a bit. All right. Thanks, man.
Steve, appreciate it, man. Steve out in L.A. 646-832-3909 is the phone number. I'll take a couple more calls if you guys want to jump in here. And one thing we haven't talked about yet is the Premier League logo. Yeah, I know it's a logo. It doesn't have any meaning whatsoever. It doesn't change anything about the way you watch the game. But, man, everybody's got an opinion on this thing. Trevor, are you thumbs up or thumbs down on the Premier League logo? Which is now just, rather than the lion standing on top of the ball with his crown on, it's just his head. It's just the lion's face. Trevor said it's a good design. It's minimalist, I guess, or it's flat design, or what. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, one of the things they show off about it, because this is the way things go now, is look at how it looks on all these different colors. You remember that? I mean, this was a major feature of the MLS change. MLS changed the logo, and it was, look at all these colors we can change it to. And it still looks good. And it's true. It does. And I get it. I mean, if you have a black logo, you can fill in the background any color you want. I mean, it's fine. I like it. I thought Twitter was mildly funny about it because we got, references to every animated lion that's ever been on a big screen. I mean, I referenced the lion from Bedknobs and Broomsticks. I saw somebody reference the lion from, I think it was Paul Carr at ESPN referenced the lion from Robin Hood, who was Prince John. You had the Lion King referenced many, many times. I saw the lion from Wizard of Oz referenced as well. So there you go. We've got a chance to make some jokes. And look, it's a lion wearing a crown. I get it. It's weird. It's sort of, and there's no ball in there. And one thing I thought was interesting was the reaction in England, in Britain specifically, seemed to trend in the direction of they're greedy and money grubbing and they're taking all our money and they don't care about the fans. And obviously the release of this logo comes in direct aftermath of the Liverpool walkout out over the ticket prices at Anfield. And I get why the Liverpool fans are upset. I mean, certainly it's within their rights as fans to express their disgust with the ticket prices if they don't believe they are fair. But the notion that the Premier League is now just about money it's not a new development, but sort of the tenor around the league is changing in a way that I think is interesting. I mean, certainly we do this with the NFL too, and guess it's very much like the NFL in this country. No matter how much the NFL squeezes and squeezes and squeezes the consumer to get more money out of them, fans still show up. fans still get to the games. They still buy the tickets. They still buy the gear. They still watch on television in massive record-breaking numbers. And that seems to be the Premier League's thing too. And you wonder if one day the bubble bursts. And I don't know, in the NFL world, the thing that we talk about most is potentially damaging the NFL and causing it to lose its place as the preeminent entertainment product in this country is something like a concussion issue where now there's not enough players or fans are leaving the game because of the violence involved, even though violence is the selling point for most Americans. I don't know if there's something like that for the Premier League, right? I mean, there's not a controversy that's going to come up or controversy. It's going to come up that's going to damage the image of the Premier League any more than the Premier League's already damaged its own image by milking fans for as much money as possible. Yeah. All right. The phone lines have dried up. The phone calls have dried up. So I think this is a good place to take our leave. Fantastic stuff from Luke Moore from the Football Ramble. If you missed it, go back and listen to it. Good stuff on the Premier League race, managerial situation in a number of clubs. Always good to talk to Luke. Next time we get him on, we'll take some phone calls. That's it, right? That's going to do it. We've got iTunes, ratings and reviews, all that stuff. You guys, I haven't asked you to do that for Soccer Morning in some time, but if you could go to iTunes right now, just take a couple of minutes, go to iTunes, give us a rating and a review. It's going to help the show. I don't think I've ever pulled the curtain back this way, and I'm not sure Trevor would even want me to. But this show sort of suffers in terms of iTunes rankings and stuff, which I don't care about anymore. I used to, I'll admit it. But it kind of suffers because we're daily, and the algorithms over at iTunes kind of punish you for the number of shows versus the number of downloads. It's a thing, okay? Just so you know. I'm not saying this show is as popular as the top iTunes shows, but I feel like we'd be a little bit better off if we weren't doing a daily show. But we want to do a daily show because that's the hook. That's why we're here. It's fun to talk soccer every day. All right, that's it. So iTunes ratings and reviews. That's really loud. What else? Trevor, anything else? No? We'll talk about this article at The Atlantic tomorrow, maybe. How this teacher is going to save American soccer or something to that effect. That'll be fun. So come back for that. See you then. Bye.